Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. I would ask folks to watch this video all the way to the end. I initially made this video on the morning of the 29th July 2025 at a time when it appeared the ceasefire is holding. Now, recently, we're now getting updates even since we made the video while we were editing it to put it up, and we're going to add at the end further context. So stay to the entire end to get the full background on what's gone on up until midnight, basically, and up until the morning of the 29th to get the background on what's happened. And then also, we would urge you to watch till the very end because there's been even further developments just since we made the video and we were in the middle of editing it to update further. Quickly, while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and do my plugs. I know people get sort of angry about that, but rather than do it in the middle of the content. So for folks that want some deeper dive analysis on this stuff and how it impacts expat world, geopolitics, this whole border dispute, all of it, I'm making long-form content and I'm putting it out to paid subscribers via Integrity News Service. For information on getting on the mailing list about that, the minimum on those videos, the time is about 30 minutes. The last one I did was about an hour. I expect there'll be even more long-form content. Email us media@integrity-legal.com to get on the mailing list for that. And also, while I'm at it, my better half and I have set up a restaurant here in downtown Bangkok, Pancake Palace, American diner-style food, breakfast anytime, including pancakes. Link is in the description below. We'd love to see you at Pancake Palace. Now, again, getting to the background and then the latest update that we've seen even since we were making this video. Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, it appears that peace is prevailing, at least for the moment, between Thailand and Cambodia. The two countries have have engaged in a ceasefire, if you will, or concluded a ceasefire. Don't know exactly how to phrase that. I'm going to get into citations and things here. This video is being made on the morning of July 29th, 2025, and this is as up to date as I can get it by the latest this video will likely be posted is 11:45 a.m. and I'm posting, I've looked over all the main news services, Reuters, AP, Bangkok Post, as we'll get into, Thai PBS World. I've looked all over. It appears the ceasefire is currently holding as of midnight between Monday the 28th and Tuesday the 29th here in Southeast Asia. So it appears that this is holding. That said, going ahead and getting into this, for background, and the reason for the thumbnail where it says ceasefire holding, there's been all this talk of ceasefire for a number of days, and things just kind of kept going. So for background, I'd be clear, background, and then we're gonna get into the more up-to-date information. I initially thought of making this, and I actually got the thumbnail from the Southeast Missourian. That's semissourian.com, which I don't know. I didn't know that folks in southeastern Missouri or Missouri, as we'd say back in south central Kansas, where I'm from. I didn't know you all were interested in what's going on out here in Southeast Asia, but hats off to you folks at that publication. So, article is titled "Cambodian and Thai Leaders Hold Ceasefire Talks in Malaysia as Border Violence Enters Fifth Day." And a big concern amongst Thais, myself included, had been all this talk of ceasefire, and the Cambodian side of the border kept talking about ceasefire, but the munitions kept coming. So it was like, well, what do we do? In order to have a ceasefire, you sort of need to cease firing, and not to be snarky, especially when people are losing their lives and things. But it was it was something that was of concern. Quoting directly, before departing for Kuala Lumpur, acting Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai, quoting further, told reporters in Bangkok that representatives from China and the U.S. will also attend as observers. He said the key focus would be on an immediate ceasefire, but noticed trust could be an issue as Cambodia has not stopped its strikes. Quote, "We have informed that we don't have trust in Cambodia. All they have done reflect that they're not sincere in solving this problem, so they have to show the detail how they will do to prove their sincerity," he said. So I think he was saying they need to show in detail how they're going to prove up that they're sincere in their talks of ceasefire. So that's the background going into the talks. Now, it appears that we have a ceasefire agreement, so that's good. So I'm not trying to get to foist any further criticism on the Cambodian side, because I don't want to, cause any further consternation that could disrupt this ceasefire agreement. That said, quoting from a recent article from Thai PBS World, that's world.thaipbs.or.th. Article is titled, Thailand and Cambodia agree to quote-unquote unconditional ceasefire starting midnight. And again, this was from yesterday, July 28, 2025, Thailand time. Quoting directly, Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to an unconditional ceasefire today, effective from midnight, and will hold bilateral talks at multiple levels. Quoting further, both Cambodia and Thailand reached a common understanding, namely an immediate and unconditional ceasefire with effect from 2400 local time, July 28, 2025, Anwar said. And that's Anwar Ibrahim. He's the current chair of ASEAN. Quoting further, he was speaking after the first meeting between the two neighboring countries, which have engaged in cross-border skirmishes since July 24. Anwar described the outcome of the special meeting between Thai Acting Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai and Cambodia's Prime Minister Hun Manet as a positive development. Both leaders held a frank discussion and showed strong commitment to restoring peace and normality in their countries. So, interesting. Quoting, and I talked about this in a prior video, that I didn't like the whole idea of third countries interjecting themselves. The currently suspended prime minister up here was talking to Emmanuel Macron from France. Like, who cares about that? Apparently, China and the U.S. were there as observers, but the substance of the discussion occurred between the acting prime minister of Thailand and the prime minister of Cambodia. Good. That's how it should be done. Frankly, I think a lot of these problems have stemmed from the fact that all these outsiders have been intervening in something they don't even understand, and in places they wouldn't even know where to find on a map, frankly. That said, quoting further, Anwar thanked the representatives of China and the United States for their participation. Quoting further, China, Anwar said, has maintained close contact with Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, as well as other relevant countries. And, I would make some arguments that, maybe some of their close contact in some of these contexts have maybe been part of the problem leading up to this point. That said, let's accentuate the positive moving forward. We've gotten a ceasefire here, which brings me to Reuters article. Reuters.com article is titled, Ceasefire takes effect between Thailand and Cambodia after 5-day border battle. Quoting directly, a ceasefire between Cambodia and Thailand came into effect at midnight on Monday. They agreed to halt their deadliest conflict in more than a decade following 5 days of intense fighting that displaced over 300,000 people. Quoting further, this is key. I want people to really understand this, because we had talks about a ceasefire, and then in the early morning hours later, after talks of a ceasefire, there was still further violence. Quoting directly, and I think this is important, there were no official reports of unrest from either side in the hours leading up to the ceasefire taking effect. I think that's key. This ceasefire looks genuine, looks like it's going to stick. Quoting further, Thai Acting Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai praised Trump for pushing the peace effort and said trade negotiations would start from a good place. Quote, I thanked him from my heart for what we received from him and helped our country move beyond this crisis. Quoting further, after today, the situation should de-escalate. That's another key thing. I'll repeat that. After today, the situation should de-escalate. And I go back again and quote again, there were no official reports of unrest from either side in the hours leading up to the ceasefire taking place. So that is important. That said, quote, and again, as we've seen in other contexts, there's been talk of a ceasefire only to see violence erupt later. Now, coming over here to an article from the Bangkok Post, bangkokpost.com. Article is titled, Trump to resume trade talks with Cambodia, Thailand after truce. Again, bangkokpost.com, quoting directly. Thailand and Cambodia agreed on Monday to halt 5 days of fighting after talks in Malaysia hosted by Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim Envoys from China and the U.S. were also at the negotiations, though their roles were not immediately clear. Well, they were observers. We've seen that in multiple publications. That's what they were there for. They were there to observe. Quoting further, tensions between the Southeast Asian neighbors erupted in recent days with fresh clashes that displaced more than 150,000 civilians on both sides of their 800-kilometer border. After separate calls with the leaders of those countries on Saturday, Trump had threatened to block trade deals with them if the violence did not stop. Thailand and Cambodia could face 36% levies on Friday if agreements with the U.S. aren't reached. Well, I think that's important to provide some context, but as I've discussed in other videos, I didn't love that and haven't loved that Thailand especially has been under trade pressure from its, from America's applying trade pressure toward its oldest ally in Asia at a time when it's under, pressure. It just doesn't look good. I don't love it. I'll just put it that way. That said, I'm happy to see, absolutely happy to see a ceasefire. This ceasefire appears to be holding. I think that's important to note as of the time of this video. And from all indications that we can see here from the ground, on the ground here in Bangkok, and I've talked to a few people that would know, that are just personal friends and things, and they've said, no, this looks like it's going to stick. So good news for Thailand, good news for Southeast Asia, good news for Cambodia for that matter, good news for everybody. Hopefully this ceasefire is going to hold and we will see an end to the violence, and we can hopefully see this operate as an initial platform to have a dialogue to continue to discuss de-escalating things and coming to a longer-term broad arrangement that everybody can agree with regarding the boundaries between Thailand and Cambodia here in Southeast Asia. Okay, folks, yeah, update now. I made that video, looked like the ceasefire was sticking. Now there appears to be some data points to indicate that may not exactly be the case. Again, this is a very fluid situation, so we're doing the best we can. Read an article from Thai PBS World, that's world.thaipbs.or.th. Thai Army accuses Cambodia of breaking truce, quoting directly, the Thai Army has accused Cambodia of violating a conditional ceasefire, saying clashes continued despite a deal agreed in Malaysia yesterday to end the bloody fighting between the two countries. Following peace talks in Malaysia yesterday, both sides agreed that the ceasefire would start at midnight to end the border fighting. However, Thai Army spokesman Major General Wintai Suvari, said, quote, at the time the agreement took effect, the Thai side detected that Cambodian forces launched armed attacks into several areas within Thai territory. In a statement, Wintai said, quote, this constitutes a deliberate violation of the agreement and a clear attempt to undermine mutual trust. Thailand is compelled to respond appropriately, exercising its legitimate right to self-defense, unquote, he said. As a result, a meeting between the two countries' regional army commanders, originally scheduled for 7 a.m., has been postponed to 10 a.m. So that is the latest update that I have seen from anywhere on this issue. That's where we're at for the moment. We'll certainly be keeping you updated as best we can as this very fluid situation evolves.